High Commander Taho Kim stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship Eternal Harmony *. His gray skin reflected the blue glow of the main screen. The large alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the strange signal. "Commander, we've received another transmission from the uncharted sector," said Science Officer Joanne Park. Her slender frame moved quickly between monitoring stations. "It's using the same pattern as before." Taho nodded. "Can we decode it yet?" "Yes, sir. Our computers finally broke the language structure." Ji Young's fingers danced across her console. "It appears to be a greeting. They call themselves humans and wish to establish peaceful contact." The bridge fell silent. New species were rare in the Galactic Coalition's 1,000-year history. Most spacefaring races had joined centuries ago. "Put me through to the Council," ordered Taho. Soon, the 12 council members appeared on the screen. Their different body shapes and colors showed the Coalition's diversity. Council Leader Seojin spoke first. "High Commander, what have you discovered?" "A new species, Council Leader. They call themselves humans and wish to meet. They seem peaceful." The council members whispered among themselves. New species meant new problems, but also new opportunities. "Our laws are clear," said Seojin. "We must welcome potential allies with open arms. Proceed with caution, but establish contact." "Yes, Council Leader." Taho bowed his head. 3 days later, the Eternal Harmony waited at the agreed meeting point. 5 smaller coalition ships formed a protective circle around it, standard procedure for first contact. "The human ship is arriving," announced Navigation Officer Do-Yun. "Dropping out of faster-than-light travel now." A sleek white vessel appeared in the darkness. It was smaller than the Eternal Harmony but elegant in design. Golden symbols on its side spelled unity in the human language. "They're transmitting a message," said Communications Officer Yumna. "Audio and visual." "Put it on screen," ordered Taho. A human appeared. It had light brown skin, no scales, and only 2 eyes. It wore a blue uniform with silver markings. "Greetings, Coalition representatives. I am Captain Anna Novak of Earth Ship Unity. We come in peace and friendship. We are honored to represent humanity in this historic meeting." Taho stepped forward. "Greetings, Captain Novak. I am High Commander Taho Kim of the Galactic Coalition. We welcome you to Coalition space and look forward to peaceful discussions." The human smiled, showing flat white teeth. "We've prepared information packages about our culture, biology, and history. With your permission, we'll begin transmission." "We would be pleased to receive them," said Taho. "We have prepared similar packages for you." Junior Weapons Officer Minsu leaned toward his superior. "Sir, they're activating something. Energy readings are increasing." Senior Weapons Officer Kyung-ho frowned. "It's probably just their communication array powering up." "But the pattern matches weapon charging sequences we've seen before," insisted Minsu. His hands hovered over his console. "What if it's a trick?" On the screen, Captain Novak continued speaking. "We believe our species have much to learn from each other. Our scientists are particularly interested in—" "They're targeting us," shouted Minsu. His young face showed fear. Without waiting for orders, he pressed the defense sequence. "No!" shouted Kyung-ho and Taho together. Too late. A bright beam shot from the Eternal Harmony toward the human ship. The Unity's shields flared briefly, then failed. The beam cut through the ship's middle section. Secondary explosions followed, tearing the vessel apart. Captain Novak's face showed shock before the transmission cut out. "What have you done?" Taho grabbed Minsu's shoulders. They were transmitting NNFORMATIDON. "But the energy pattern—" Minsu's voice shook. Jia Young checked her readings. "Their technology is different from ours. What looked like weapon signatures was just their advanced communication system." The HSS Dauntless hung in space like a dark cloud. Its black hull absorbed light rather than reflected it. Red warning lights blinked along its sides. It was 3 kilometers long, bigger than any coalition warship. Captain Dongyun Lee stood by the main window on the bridge. He was tall for a human, with short black hair and serious eyes. His dark blue uniform had no decorations except a small Earth symbol on the collar. "Status report," he said. Lieutenant Subin checked her screen. "Coalition Defense Fleet is gathering. 16 ships so far. More on the way." Dongyun nodded. "How many crew members do they think we have?" "Their scans suggest they believe we have a full crew complement of around 5,000, sir." A small smile touched Dongyun's lips. "Good. Let them keep thinking that." The truth was different. The Dauntless carried only 50 humans. Most systems were run by SEJIN, their artificial intelligence. "Captain," said SEJIN through the ship's speakers. The AI's voice was calm and female. "Coalition Commander Minho Kang is hailing us." "Put him through." The main screen showed a coalition officer. He had blue-gray skin and 4 eyes like most of his species. "Human vessel," said Commander Minho. "This is a restricted area. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Dongyun kept his face blank. "This is Captain Lee of the HSS Dauntless. We are here under direct orders from Earth Central Command. We carry Ambassador Ji-hoon Choi, who demands a meeting with your council." "You are in no position to make demands," said Minho. "Your ship is impressive, but our fleet outnumbers you." "Numbers aren't everything, Commander," said Dongyun. "But we didn't come to fight. We came for justice." Minho's upper eyes narrowed. "You will follow our escort to Station Alpha. Any deviation will be considered hostile action." The screen went dark. Dongyun turned to his crew. "Tactical assessment." Weapons Officer Jia spoke up. "Their ships are well maintained, but at least 2 generations behind our technology. They're arranging in standard quarantine formation. Nothing surprising." "They think we're here for revenge," said Subin. "Let them think that," replied Dongyun. "Follow their escort. Maintain passive scans only." On the Coalition command ship, Commander Minho Kang watched the human vessel with all 4 eyes. "Something isn't right," he said to his second-in-command, Major Hana. Hana checked the sensor readings again. "The ship is mostly empty, sir. We detect only 50 life forms aboard." "That's impossible. A ship that size needs thousands to operate. Maybe they're hiding their crew somehow." Minho shook his head. "No species can hide from our biosensors. This doesn't make sense." "Sir," called out Sensor Officer Chuno, "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns throughout the human ship. It seems to be talking to itself." Minho frowned. "Explain." "There are data streams connecting all ship systems. They move like thoughts, sir." "An artificial intelligence," whispered Hana. "They've given control to a machine." The idea made Minho uncomfortable. No coalition species trusted computers that much. "Sir, should we proceed with boarding?" asked Hana. Minho considered his options. "Yes, prepare 3 boarding teams. Full combat gear." Ambassador Ji-hoon Choi sat in his quarters aboard the Dauntless. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and tired eyes. On his desk sat pictures of his family back on Earth. The door chimed. "Enter," said Ji-hoon. Captain Dongyun stepped inside. "Ambassador, coalition forces will board us in 30 minutes. Are you prepared?" Ji-hoon nodded. "They expect angry humans demanding revenge. They'll get something different." SEJIN reports their boarding teams are nervous. They've never dealt with a ship like ours before. "Good," said Ji-hoon. "Fear makes people listen." Dongyun hesitated. "Sir, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead, Captain." "Earth could have sent the entire fleet. Why just 1 ship?" Ji-hoon smiled slightly. "What do you do when you find a beehive, Captain? Do you hit it with a sledgehammer, or do you study it first to find the safest approach?" "I see. We're the stick poking the hive." "Exactly. We need to understand who we're dealing with." 3 coalition shuttles approached the Dauntless. Each carried 20 armed soldiers. Commander Minho led the main team himself. Remember, he told his troops, humans are physically weaker than most coalition species. But don't underestimate them. Their ship technology is advanced. The shuttles docked with the Dauntless without problems. Too easily, Minho thought. His boarding team entered the massive ship. The corridors were clean, well-lit, and mostly empty. "Where is everyone?" whispered a young soldier. They reached a large door labeled Main Conference Room, in both human and coalition languages. The council chamber on Station Alpha was large and round. 12 raised seats formed a circle for the council members. In the center stood a single platform where speakers could address the council. Ambassador Ji-hoon Choi stood on this platform now. He wore a simple black suit with Earth's emblem, a blue circle with white lines, on his chest. His face showed no anger, which made many council members nervous. High Commander Taeho sat among the council today as a witness. Next to Council Leader Seojin sat a new face, Intelligence Officer Hye-soo Yoon. Her job was to study the humans and determine if they were truly dangerous. "Ambassador Choi," began Council Leader Seojin, "we welcome you to Station Alpha. We deeply regret the tragic incident involving your diplomatic vessel." Ji-hoon's face remained calm. 342 people died on the Unity, including my wife, who was a cultural attaché. A heavy silence fell over the room. Seojin looked uncomfortable. "It was a terrible mistake," said Taeho. "Officer Min-soo acted without orders. He has been removed from service." One junior officer. Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. "Is that your idea of justice?" Seojin leaned forward. "What exactly does Earth want, Ambassador?" Ji-hoon tapped a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared above the platform, showing the destruction of the Unity from multiple angles. "First, we want truth," said Ji-hoon. "Our ship was sending standard information packages. Your vessel fired without provocation. Your technology triggered our warning systems," argued a council member. "Then your warning systems are flawed," replied Ji-hoon calmly. "Our second demand is reparations, compensation for the families of the dead." Council members murmured among themselves. Reparations were reasonable. "And third," continued Ji-hoon, "we want a formal alliance with security guarantees. No coalition ship will ever fire on a human vessel again." "That's outrageous," said a council member. "You demand special treatment." "We demand safety," corrected Ji-hoon. "Or would you prefer we ensure our own safety?" The threat hung in the air. After the meeting, Intelligence Officer Hye-soo Yoon followed Ambassador Ji-hoon to his quarters. She was assigned to monitor him. "Officer Yoon," said Ji-hoon without turning around, "if you wish to speak with me, you only need to ask." Hye-soo blinked in surprise. "How did you know I was following you?" "Your reflection in the window." Ji-hoon turned and smiled slightly. "Would you like to come in? I could use some company." Inside his quarters, Ji-hoon offered Hye-soo a seat and poured 2 cups of a brown liquid. "It's called tea," he explained, "a popular drink on Earth." Hye-soo accepted the cup cautiously. Her job was to learn about humans, after all. "Ambassador, may I ask you something directly?" she said. "Please do. Are humans planning to attack the coalition?" Ji-hoon sipped his tea. "That depends on your response to our demands." "But your ship, the Dauntless, it's clearly designed for war." "It's designed to protect human interests," corrected Ji-hoon. "There's a difference." Hye-soo studied the human carefully. He was physically unremarkable. Average height, average build. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. "What makes humans dangerous?" she asked suddenly. "You're not particularly strong or fast." Ji-hoon smiled. "Have you studied Earth's wildlife, Officer Yoon?" "Some basics. On Earth, there's an animal called a wolf. Strong jaws, sharp teeth, hunts in packs. Then there's an animal called a human." Ji-hoon's eyes grew serious. "Physically weaker than a wolf. Slower too, But wolves are endangered, and humans number in the billions. Do you know why? Hyasu shook her head. Persistence, said Ji-hoon. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We followed prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We don't give up. Is that a threat? It's biology. We don't want war, Officer Yoon. But if forced into one, we won't stop until we've won. It's in our nature. Later, Hyasu reported to the council in a private session. Humans appear physically average, she explained. Their strength, speed, and senses are unremarkable compared to other coalition species. Then they're not a threat, asked Council Leader Seojin. Emergency alarms blared throughout Station Alpha. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Council members rushed to the command center where General Sun Woo-choi, the coalition's military leader, stood before a large screen. 7 outposts have gone dark in the last 6 hours, reported General Sun Woo. His usually neat uniform looked wrinkled, as if he had been wearing it for days. No distress signals, no signs of attack. They simply stopped communicating. Council Leader Seojin pounded his fist on the table. This must be the humans. They're attacking us. We can't confirm that, said General Sun Woo. Our ships found no evidence of weapons fire or invasion forces at the first 3 outposts. Everything is intact, just dead. No power, no working systems. What about the people? Asked Taho. Gone. All of them. The room fell silent. 7 outposts meant over 3,000 people missing. Show us the security recordings, ordered Seojin. General Sunwood nodded to a technician. The main screen showed the inside of Outpost Rigel. Coalition workers moved about normally. Then the lights flickered. People looked up, confused. Then everything went black. That's it? Asked a council member. No attack. No humans. Nothing, confirmed General Sunwoo. The same at every outpost. Systems fail, then communications cease. Taiho rubbed his 4 eyes tiredly. I don't understand. If the humans have this capability, why show their warship at all? Why send an ambassador to make demands? A distraction, said Hyasu, entering the room. The Dauntless was never their real first response. It was a decoy. On Earth, Chief Engineer Yeonji Han stood in a large control room. Wall-to-wall screens showed various locations in Coalition space. Her team of technicians monitored hundreds of small devices shaped like silver discs. Stealth Platform 117 has completed its scan of the Proxima military base, reported a technician. Yeonji nodded. Add it to the database. How many platforms have we deployed now? 342, ma'am. 1 for each person lost on the Unity. A small smile touched Yeonji's lips. The symbolism wasn't accidental. Each stealth observation platform carried the name of someone who died on the Unity. How many coalition defense systems have we mapped? Asked Yeonji. Approximately 70% of their major installations. The platforms are working as designed, completely undetectable by their sensors. Yeonji walked to a central platform where a 3D map showed coalition territory. Small red dots indicated mapped defense systems. The pattern was growing more complete by the hour. And the power disruption tests. Successful at all 7 targets, the electromagnetic pulse disabled their systems without causing permanent damage. All personnel were safely teleported to Holding Facility 6. Yeonji nodded again. Good. Remember, we're not at war yet. This is information gathering. Yes, Mom. Though some might call it an invasion. No, corrected Yeonji. It's insurance. The coalition needs to understand who they're dealing with. Back on Station Alpha, Ambassador Ji-hoon sat calmly in a detention cell. After the outposts went dark, the council had ordered his arrest. He didn't resist. The cell door opened, and Commander Minho entered with 2 guards. You're behind the attacks, accused Minho. Tell us how to restore communications with our outposts. Ji-hoon looked up mildly. There have been no attacks, Commander. 7 outposts are dark. Thousands of people are missing. Missing, not dead, clarified Ji-hoon. An important distinction. The grand meeting hall buzzed with frightened voices. Representatives from all 26 coalition species had gathered for an emergency session. Some pounded tables, others shouted. Many simply sat in worried silence. "We should surrender immediately," cried the Vexian delegate, a small green being with 6 arms. "The humans can shut down our outposts without firing a shot." "Never," roared the Krath representative, his scaled skin flushing red with anger. "We are the Galactic Coalition. We do not bow to newcomers." Council leader Seojin called for order, banging a ceremonial staff on the floor 3 times. The room gradually quieted. "We face an unprecedented situation," said Seojin. "The humans have demonstrated capabilities we did not expect, but we must not panic." Science Directorate head Jae-yun Sung stepped forward. He was older than most, with pale gray skin and wisdom wrinkles around all 4 eyes. "Council members, I believe the humans are bluffing," said Jae-yun. "No species could advance so quickly. Their ship is impressive, yes, but these invisible platforms. The ability to shut down our outposts without trace. It's not possible." "But we've seen the evidence," argued Tao. 7 outposts dark, thousands missing. "Tricks and illusions," insisted Jae-yun. "Perhaps they hacked our communication systems to make us think the outposts are dark, or they found a way to jam our signals." General Sunwoo shook his head. "We sent ships to investigate. The outposts are completely without power. Everyone is gone." "Then where are the attack ships?" demanded Jae-yun. "Where is this human fleet? We've seen only 1 vessel." As the debate raged on, Coalition spy Ji-won Shin slipped quietly into the back of the hall. She had just returned from a dangerous mission. 3 days earlier, Ji-won had infiltrated the Dauntless. As a shapeshifter, she could take human form. She posed as a maintenance worker, gaining access to less secure areas of the ship. What she discovered surprised her. The Dauntless was powerful, yes, but not beyond Coalition technology. Its weapons were only slightly more advanced. Its defenses were strong but not unbeatable. The real difference was in how the ship operated. Where Coalition vessels needed large crews, the Dauntless ran mostly on automation. Where Coalition military followed strict hierarchies, humans used flexible command structures. Most surprising was how much the humans relied on their AI. SEJIN. The artificial intelligence didn't just run systems. It participated in planning, offered advice, and seemed almost like another crew member. Now, Ji-won needed to report her findings, but as she listened to the panicked debate, she wondered if anyone would believe the truth. Ji-won finally got her chance to speak after hours of argument. "Honored Council," she began, "I have infiltrated the human vessel Dauntless. I discovered something important." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. "The humans are not technologically superior to us," said Ji-won. "Their ship is impressive, but not impossible. Their weapons are advanced, but not magical." "Then how do you explain the outposts?" demanded a delegate. "They think differently than we do," explained Ji-won. "Where we would build a bigger ship or a stronger weapon, they created stealth technology. Where we would send a fleet, they sent observers." "So they are weaker than they appear?" asked Seojin hopefully. "No," corrected Ji-won. "They're fighting a different kind of battle. They've created the illusion of overwhelming force while actually committing minimal resources." "Psychological warfare," murmured Hae-soo. "Exactly," agreed Ji-won. "And it's working. Look at us, divided, arguing, afraid, just as they planned." In his private quarters, Ambassador Ji-hoon received a visitor. He had been released from detention when the council realized they needed him. Officer Yoon greeted Ji-hoon as Hae-soo entered. "What brings you here?" "Your strategy," said Hae-soo. "It's clever. Make us think humans are all-powerful without firing a shot." Ji-hoon smiled slightly. I don't know what you mean. Your spy has been discovered, said Hyasu. We know the Dauntless isn't as powerful as it seems. For the first time, Ji-hoon looked surprised. Then he laughed softly. You misunderstand, Officer Yoon. We never wanted you to fear the Dauntless. We wanted you to fear what you couldn't see. The platforms. The platforms are real. The missing people are safe. But the true threat has never been shown. Hyasu frowned. What do you mean? The Dauntless is one ship. Earth has built 30 like it. They remain in human space, awaiting orders. Hyaisu's eyes widened. You're bluffing. Am I? Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. Check your long-range sensors. Focus on the edge of human territory. Coalition synapsepsychologist Minji Yang had studied 12 different alien species during her career. She had written papers on the hive mind of the Zaxians and the emotional restraint of the Dreth. But humans fascinated her more than any species she had encountered before. Request permission to interview human crew members, she wrote in her application to the council. Understanding their psychology may help us predict their actions. To her surprise, the council approved her request immediately. They were desperate for insights. Captain Dong-yun welcomed Minji aboard the Dauntless with polite formality. Dr. Yang, we're happy to cooperate with your research, he said. My crew has been instructed to answer your questions honestly. Thank you, Captain, said Minji. I would like to interview crew members individually, if possible. Of course. We've prepared a room for you. Communications Officer Tae-woo-yu will be your first subject. Minji spent the next 3 days interviewing 10 different crew members. She recorded each session carefully, looking for patterns. What she found disturbed her. Tae-woo-yu was a young human with friendly eyes and an easy smile. He sat across from Minji in the interview room. Officer Yu, how did you feel when you learned about the destruction of the Unity? Asked Minji. Angry at first, said Tae-woo honestly. Then sad. Then determined. Determined to do what? To make sure it never happens again. To protect other humans. Minji made notes. You lost friends on the Unity. My cousin was a junior diplomat. We grew up together. Tae-woo's eyes grew distant. I was angry enough to want revenge at first. But that passed. It passed. This surprised Minji. How? Anger doesn't help anyone. It doesn't bring back the dead. It doesn't make good decisions. Tae-woo shrugged. We need to focus on making things right, not getting even. This pattern repeated in every interview. Initial anger, grief, then a cold determination. No lasting desire for revenge. No blind hatred. Just a focused resolve that Minji found more unsettling than rage would have been. The most interesting interview was with engineer Jin-soo Park, who had been working on the stealth platforms. The platforms aren't weapons, Jin-soo explained. They're eyes and ears. We needed to understand the coalition before deciding how to respond. But you took people from outposts, said Minji. Temporarily, corrected Jin-soo. They're comfortable and safe. We're not monsters, Dr. Yang. We just needed to make a point. What point is that? That we could have done much worse, but chose not to. Jin-soo leaned forward. War is our last choice, not our first. By her final interview, Minji had identified several key traits in human psychology. First, humans process trauma differently than known species. They converted fear and grief into determination. They didn't forget injuries but could move beyond them. Second, humans formed intense loyalties, even with non-humans. Several crew members spoke of alien friends from previous diplomatic missions with the same affection they showed for human companions. Third, and most surprising, humans truly didn't want war. They wanted justice and security. Their aggressive posturing was calculated to force a diplomatic solution by demonstrating strength. They're persistence predators, Minji explained to the council the next day. In ancient times, they didn't need to be the strongest or fastest. They just needed to outlast their prey. That mentality shapes everything they do. Are you saying they're not dangerous? Asked Seojin skeptically. No, said Minji firmly. I'm saying they're dangerous in a different way than we imagined. They don't want to destroy us. They want to outlast us. They're playing a longer game than we are. If humans are so peace-loving, asked Council Leader Seojin, why do they excel so thoroughly at warfare? Because they hate it, replied Minji. They study war intensely so they can end conflicts quickly. They prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. That makes no sense, muttered Jae-yun. It does if you understand human history, said Minji. They nearly destroyed themselves several times. They learned that lesson the hard way. The new human ship emerged from hyperspace with a flash of blue light. Unlike the black, threatening shape of the Dauntless, this vessel gleamed white and gold. It was even larger than the Dauntless, but had a smoother design with fewer visible weapons. On its side, in both human and coalition script, was the name HFY Reconciliation. All defense systems to ready status, ordered General Sunwoo from the command center of Station Alpha. Prepare for possible attack. Sir, said a sensor officer, the human vessel is not raising shields or charging weapons. They're broadcasting on open channels. Put it on screen, ordered Seojin, who had rushed to the command center at the first alarm. The main screen showed a human woman in a white uniform with gold trim. Her black hair was streaked with gray and pulled back in a neat bun. 4 gold stars adorned each shoulder of her uniform. This is Admiral Youngmi Kang of the human starship Reconciliation, she said in a calm, measured voice. I bring a formal declaration from Earth Central Command to the Galactic Coalition. Seojin stepped forward. This is Council Leader Seojin. What declaration? One of peace, replied Admiral Youngmi, and a demonstration of our position. We request permission to send a small shuttle to Station Alpha with our declaration team. The coalition leaders exchanged nervous glances. Permission granted, said Seojin finally, but only 5 representatives may board. Admiral Youngmi nodded. Understood. The shuttle will depart shortly. An hour later, Admiral Youngmi stood in the council chamber. Behind her were Ambassador Ji-hoon and 3 humans in formal uniforms. They carried no visible weapons. Honorable Council, began Admiral Youngmi, I bring Earth's official response to the Unity incident and subsequent negotiations. She unrolled a document written on actual paper, a rarity in the digital age, and began to read. Earth Central Command hereby declares that a defensive perimeter has been established around all coalition military installations. Any aggressive movement will be met with proportional response. Murmurs broke out among the council members. To demonstrate this capability, continued Youngmi, we will now neutralize the weapons systems on 3 coalition warships: the Peacekeeper, the Vigilant Hunter, and the Swift Justice. General Sunwoo jumped to his feet. Those ships are at different points in our territory. They're hundreds of light years apart. Admiral Youngmi nodded to one of her officers, who tapped a command into a small device. On the main screen, live feeds showed the 3 named warships. As everyone watched, the lights on all 3 ships flickered. Then their engine glows dimmed. What have you done? Demanded General Sunwoo. Disabled their primary weapons and engines temporarily, explained Admiral Youngmi calmly. No permanent damage, no casualties. She let the implications sink in. The humans could have killed everyone aboard but chose restraint. Now, continued Admiral Youngmi, I will explain our position clearly. Earth does not want war. We want 3 things: acknowledgement of wrongdoing, compensation for our losses, and security guarantees. She stepped closer to the council table. You've refused our reasonable requests, so we've ensured our own security by establishing this defensive network. It will remain in place until a formal treaty is signed. Later, in a private meeting room, coalition military strategist Hyunwoo Park presented his analysis to key leaders. The human approach is unlike anything in our military doctrine, explained Hyunwoo. He was younger than most senior officers, but had a brilliant strategic mind. How so? asked Seojin. They're not trying to win a war, said Hyunmu. They're trying to prevent one while maintaining absolute security. He displayed a holographic map showing the locations of known human stealth platforms. They've positioned these platforms to monitor and potentially neutralize our military capabilities. But notice, they're defensive, not offensive. They can shut down our weapons, but not our life support or civilian infrastructure. A precise application of power, murmured Tao. Exactly, agreed Hyunmu. This is not a species that will accept vulnerability ever again. The attack on the Unity taught them we might shoot first and think later. They've ensured that can't happen again. Coalition Intelligence Officer Haesu Yoon sat in a small dark room deep inside Station Alpha. For 3 days straight, she had worked with her best code breakers to decrypt human communications. Now, finally, they had succeeded. Play the messages again, she ordered. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. A technician nodded and activated the computer. Voices filled the room, human voices speaking freely, not knowing they were being recorded by coalition sensors. Earth command to Dauntless. The Punisher faction is growing stronger. Public opinion shifts daily. Admiral Kane's mission is our last chance for a peaceful resolution. Another message followed. Reconciliation to Earth Command. The coalition seems to be taking our demonstration seriously. Ambassador Ji-hoon believes negotiations will succeed. Expansionist faction representatives disagree and recommend immediate occupation of key systems. Haesu's heart raced. This was valuable intelligence. She rushed to present her findings to the council. We've decoded their internal communications, Haesu explained to the gathered leaders. The humans are divided into 3 main factions. She displayed a simple diagram on the main screen. First, the Reconcilers, led by Admiral Youngmi. They want peace and cooperation. Second, the Punishers, who demand justice for the Unity attack. And third, the Expansionists, who see us as a threat to be controlled or eliminated. Council leader Seojin frowned. Which faction has the most power? It's complicated, said Haesu. Their government is balancing all 3 viewpoints. The current approach, showing strength while offering peace, is a compromise between these factions. So the displays of power, the disabled outposts, the weapon shutdowns, began Tao. All designed to satisfy the more aggressive factions, confirmed Haesu, without actually starting a war. The council members exchanged worried glances. There's more, continued Haesu. Earth's government is barely holding back the more aggressive factions. Their measured response wasn't just strategic, it was the most restrained option their leadership could sell to their population. Ambassador Ji-hoon was not surprised when Haesu confronted him with the intercepted communications. You've been listening to our transmissions, he said calmly. Good. I hoped you would. Haesu blinked in confusion. You wanted us to hear. Of course. The encryption was deliberately weak. Ji-hoon smiled slightly. We needed you to understand our position. Your people are divided, said Haesu. Some want war. All people are divided in times of crisis, replied Ji-hoon. Some of your coalition species call for surrender. Others want to attack us. Leaders must find middle paths. Haesu sat across from him. Tell me about these factions honestly. Ji-hoon nodded. The Reconcilers, led by Admiral Youngmi, believe peaceful cooperation benefits everyone. They're the largest faction. And the Punishers. They demand justice for the Unity. Some want trials for those responsible. Others want harsher penalties. Ji-hoon's face showed sadness. They gained many supporters after the attack. And the Expansionists. Ji-hoon's expression grew more serious. They see the coalition as a potential threat to human security. They argue we should establish control while we have the advantage. He leaned forward. They are the smallest faction, but their influence grows each day we don't reach an agreement. So your current approach is a compromise. Finished Ji-hoon. Show strength to satisfy the Punishers and Expansionists, while pursuing peace to support the Reconcilers. Coalition Security Chief Suyum Lee called an emergency meeting the next day. Her face was pale with worry. "We've completed a full sensor sweep using new detection methods," she announced. "The human stealth technology has already mapped every major coalition world." She displayed a galactic map showing thousands of tiny dots, human observation platforms, positioned near every significant coalition planet, station, and outpost. "They're everywhere," whispered a council member. "The implications are clear," said Suyang. "They could strike anywhere at any time, but instead chose to reveal this capability as leverage for peaceful resolution." General Sunwoo studied the map carefully. "This changes everything. If they wanted war, they could have crippled our entire defense network simultaneously. But they didn't," said Hyasu. "They showed restraint. Or patience," countered Jae-yun. "Perhaps they're waiting for something." 5 days of intense negotiations followed. Coalition and human representatives worked around the clock in the grand meeting hall of Station Alpha. Maps were drawn, treaties drafted, arguments made, and compromises reached. On the final day, Council Leader Seojin stood before the assembled delegates of all 26 coalition species. Ambassador Ji-hoon and Admiral Youngmi represented Earth. Captain Dong-yun and Commander Minho stood to the side, once enemies, now cautious colleagues. "After careful consideration," announced Seojin, "the Galactic Coalition formally acknowledges responsibility for the unprovoked attack on the human vessel Unity." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked unhappy but remained silent. "We offer our deepest apologies for this tragic mistake," continued Seojin. "We also agree to pay reparations to the families of those lost, as detailed in Section 12 of the treaty." Seojin turned to face the human representatives directly. "Furthermore, we accept the proposed security protocols. Both sides will maintain open communications and provide advance notice of military movements. Joint defense exercises will be held yearly to prevent misunderstandings." Admiral Youngmi stepped forward. "And the technology exchange." "Agreed," said Seojin. "The coalition will share faster-than-light communication techniques. Earth will share limited aspects of stealth technology for civilian research purposes." Seojin held up a document written on paper, a human tradition they had adopted for this historic moment. "Let this treaty mark not the end of conflict, but the beginning of cooperation between our peoples." One by one, the representatives signed. First Seojin, then Admiral Youngmi, then the leaders of each coalition species. When Ambassador Ji-hoon signed last, applause filled the room. "There is one final matter," said Admiral Youngmi, "the human observation platforms." The room grew quiet. This had been the most difficult point in negotiations. "As agreed," continued Youngmi, 90% of platforms will be deactivated and removed within 30 days. The remaining 10% will stay as part of the joint security network, operated by both human and coalition personnel. Seojin nodded. "We accept these terms." 3 months later, Captain Dong-yun Lee and Commander Minho Kang stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Unity Station, built at the exact spot where the first human diplomatic vessel had been destroyed. It symbolized the new relationship between Earth and the coalition. "Did you ever think we'd end up working together?" asked Minho. Dong-hyun shook his head. "When I first arrived in the Dauntless, I thought war was inevitable." "What changed?" "Understanding," said Dong-hyun. "On both sides." Below them, human and coalition officers trained together in the station's new joint security force. Created to prevent future misunderstandings, the force combined the best of both sides. Coalition experience with human innovation. "My government still doesn't fully trust humans," admitted Minho. "Mine doesn't fully trust the coalition either," replied Dong-hyun. "Trust takes time." A small shuttle approached the station. It carried Ambassador Ji-hoon, returning from Earth with news. "The expansionist faction has lost support," Ji-hoon told them later in the station's meeting room. "The treaty is popular. People see the benefits of peace. And the observation platforms. asked Minho. Being removed on schedule, confirmed Jihoon. Though I notice your government is building its own versions now. Minho smiled slightly. We learn quickly. 5 years passed. Humanity integrated into the broader galactic community. Their persistence, adaptability, and unique psychology made them valuable allies. Human ships joined coalition fleets. Coalition scientists worked in Earth laboratories. Not everyone approved of the alliance. Some humans still distrusted aliens. Some coalition species still feared humans. But the majority on both sides recognized the benefits of cooperation.